Today we have all the latest updated trade rumors focusing on players like Jack Eichel, Vladimir Tarasenko, Duncan, Nate Schmidt, and more. We also have news on a potential buyout coming. The Coyotes finally have themselves a new head coach, and of course it's July 1st, which means for many NHL players, it's bonus day. We'll discuss all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Of course, as we talked about in the opener, we have a lot to cover here today. So again, another video that's going to have a lot of tidbits of information. I highly recommend you watch all the way through and listen closely so you don't miss anything. Getting started here, as I mentioned, today is July the 1st. Up here in Canada, it's our national holiday for Canada Day. But amongst the NHL, it's bonus day for many NHL players, including guys who were previously bought out and still getting their annual paychecks from their old NHL team. So, of course, it's a bit of a cash-strapping kind of day for many NHL clubs. Of course, we know that due to the pandemic, revenues have been down, and many NHL teams, especially ones that didn't get into the playoffs, and many of the Canadian locations in there as well, have not really been generating much in the way of revenue, so it's tough times. So obviously paying out a lot of cash today is likely going to hurt, but at the end of the day, that's their obligations and their agreements. But I'll give you a quick snippet here on the screen showing you a lot of the players that are getting buyout payouts here today. Of course, leading the way is a former Islanders goalie Rick DiPietro getting his annual million-plus chunk of change from the Isles, which he will continue to get until 2028. Yes, that's the longest buyout currently on the books here right now. Of course, you're going to see lots of other names on that list, including some guys like Kyle Turris. You get Bobby Ryan. You got Corey Perry, of course, still playing with Montreal and still getting paid from the Anaheim Ducks. You got Dion Phaneuf's on there, and many, many other NHL players. So just have a quick look there and see what guys are getting paid still. I mean, even Vinny Lecavalier, of course, who was spotted at the last Lightning home game, still obviously supports the team, lives in the area, and still getting paid a big chunk of change from that Lightning buyout from all those years ago. Like, goes to show you, at one point here, some of those buyouts were pretty crazy. Now, when Lecavalier was given his buyout, it was a compliance buyout, so doesn't impact them cap-wise, but still impacts the team because ultimately he's still getting paid. But anybody else who has bonuses built into their contract, today would be the day. I know it's a very expensive day for the Maple Leafs, for example, because a lot of their top guys are very, very bonus heavy, like Marner, Matthews, and Tavares, etc. So expensive day for MLSE, not so expensive for other smaller market teams who don't typically give those out as frequently, but still a very expensive day around the entire NHL. Now, other news we have here today include the Arizona Coyotes have finally named their head coach, and it's Andre Tourigny, also known as the Bears, is his nickname. Tourigny's a really well-respected guy amongst the hockey community, a longtime coach. Some of you may or may not be familiar with him because he's not super well-known to NHL fans. It just depends on what markets you follow, I guess. Or if you're up in Canada, you might be a little bit more familiar because he's done a lot of work with Hockey Canada. But Tourigny's been a former NHL assistant coach. He had a stint with the Colorado Avalanche and his local Ottawa Senators. Of course, he's from that area, coached most recently, right up until now, with the Ottawa 67s. Had a very successful run there. Had a big role. He was much more for them than just a head coach. Of course, so he coached them. Before that, he had coached in the Quebec League with Ruin Noranda. And I believe he was a GM for a while, and he was there for, I believe, the better part of about a decade. He's worked a lot extensively, as I mentioned, with Hockey Canada, coached the World Juniors in the past, had a new contract that he had inked with Hockey Canada as well. For the next couple of years, he was going to have various different roles from assistant to head coaches for different tournaments, including the World Juniors and World Championships, which he's likely going to have to not follow through on now because he's going to be a little bit busy. He believed that he gets a 3-year contract with the Coyotes, and of course one of the comments from the GM in Arizona after hiring him mentioned that he got a long successful run of working and developing with young players because the bulk of his experience is at the major junior level where he's had so much success, like I said, not only in the junior leagues between OHL and the Q, but also on the international stage as well. So he's very well respected in that regard. It's a matter of time before he got a head coaching opportunity, and he's certainly a well-deserved candidate here, in my opinion. Following in the footsteps of Rick Tocchet in Arizona, and I do think it's fair to say that GM Bill Armstrong did a good job here and hired one heck of a guy and a coach. So I wish him all the success in Arizona. Now, we also got word from Frank Saravalli that amongst all the speculation with the Rangers and the whole Tony Deangelo situation, that it seems to be pretty well official that they're going to be proceeding with a buyout to end the tenure of Tony D in the Big Apple. Of course, we know that the former brass there, including Jeff Gorton and John Davidson, said he would never play for the Rangers again. I did not suspect there would be any kind of a different feeling or approach from the new regime led by Chris Drury. Obviously, Deangelo was a guy they tried to trade. They tried to retain salary. It just didn't work. Nobody wanted to have any piece of that, and for good reason. I mean, not only the attitude issues and the off-ice issues, but the money that was attached to that as well. Now, of course, he could have gone through a contract termination, but that has to be mutually agreed upon, and of course, Tony's not going to agree to that and lose a bunch of money. So they're going to have to go this road. Because he's an RFA type of player, he's under the age of 27 or under the age of 7 years pro experience, they can do instead of doing a 2/3 buyout, they get a 1/3 buyout, so it's a lot cheaper for teams to buy those out. They said when it comes to retaining salary, it didn't make sense for them to retain a whole lot because in a lot of cases the buyout's cheaper, so they get more money off their cap that they can put towards other areas. And we know the Rangers are a team expected to make some significant upgrades possibly this offseason, with the ownership really pushing to move the team forward. You at least get the vibe there that something bigger is going to go down, so getting this contract off the books will do nothing but help in that regard. So as soon as that is possible and that window opens up, then Tony D's buyout will become official with the Rangers. That saga will end and he will move on. I won't be shocked if he does get another NHL contract. It sounded like there were teams that were interested near the deadline to get him possibly on their playoff roster, but obviously for a much cheaper price. So I think in a lot of ways he's going to have to sign for much cheaper and to kind of reprove himself, not only on the ice, but in the locker room with his teammates before they really commit longer term or pay him anything more significant. And you never know. He may not get a contract. It's not a given. He may have to play overseas or somewhere else and kind of rehabilitate his reputation, so to speak, and come back. I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, with the amount of teams that were rumored to be interested before, I think he'll likely get a short-term cheap contract and see if he can get his career back on track. Although he does have a history of this type of behavior, numerous times. It's not the first time something like this has occurred. Now, before we jump into the NHL Trade Rumours today, I do want to take some time and acknowledge a brand new sponsor. Now, of course, the other sponsors that we've been working with here at Top Shelf Hockey, including Manscaped and Exeter Smart Wallets, are still on board. We're still doing lots of great work with them, and I appreciate their support. But we do have a new company coming on board to help sponsor Top Shelf Hockey as well, and they're called the Ultimate Hockey Fan. Now, if you're the type of person that loves memorabilia, if you're a memorabilia collector, you have a man cave, a fan cave, a she shed, a sports bar, doesn't matter what you want to call it, it's the ultimate accessory to really amp things up a notch. Now, this is a fully licensed NHL product. You can get it with any NHL team, all kinds of options here. So I'm going to show you a clip from them advertising their products. There will be a QR code on the screen the entire time. If you want to use your smartphone, you can click on that code with your camera. It'll take you directly to the link, which will be my affiliate link to shop with them if you want to check stuff out and inquire further if it interests you. So I now present to you the Ultimate Hockey Fan.
Stay cool while cheering on your favorite NHL team with your own customized Ultimate Hockey Ceiling Fan. Choose from home, away, third jersey, wood, and vintage blade themes. Then select from 2 hockey-like fixture designs, our puck that illuminates your favorite team logo, or our 3D goalie mats. The Ultimate Hockey Fan looks great in any kids' room, she shed, man cave, or sports bar. Not only do our fans cool your room, they make your room look cool. Order your custom fan today at ultimatehockeyfans.com.
So thanks very much for taking the time to watch that promotional video. I greatly appreciate it. In case you didn't want to use the QR code, but you are interested to look into it a little bit further, there will be a link in the pinned comment down below in this video. So certainly check that out. And it'll also be in the description as well. Depending on what kind of device you're watching on, you may find one form easier than the other. Now, jumping into today's trade talk, I want to start off first with the latest updates on Jack Eichel. Now, it sounds like the price tag on Eichel might be coming down some. Now, as we had discussed before, it was rumored that Adams and the Sabres were looking for as many as 6 pieces, many of which had to be first-round quality assets. So they didn't have to all be first-round picks, but they could be a combination of picks or players that were maybe former first-round picks, relatively young. Either way, they're looking for a hefty Kings ransom here to move their star player and their captain, the former number 2 overall selection, who went obviously behind Connor McDavid back in 2015. Now, of course, the latest updates include a couple of things. One, Darren Dreger on a recent podcast, The Instigators, has made mention that he feels the price tag is in a starting or has to come down, and likely going to be closer to like 4, maybe 5 pieces, definitely not going to be 6. Obviously, teams are kind of pushing back here at this point, and he feels like that the asking price might be hurting his value. So it's a matter of time before the Sabres are going to have to really seriously consider some, smaller packages, if you will. But these smaller packages are still likely going to be an excellent return. Now, another thing to keep in mind here as well is we had comments from Kevin Adams, and we even had some NHL insiders reach out to Eichel's agent, who made comments that were very similar as well. So it's all lining up here that they've recently met and that they had a good long talk and that a resolution is coming soon. The Sabres have definitely not come off their stance on the neck surgery that he wants to have. So it looks as though things are kind of progressing, and that we could say talks are kind of still heating up here. I don't think it's fair to say personally that any team is completely out, because obviously, like I said, at this point, a lot of teams are kicking tires, having exploratory conversations, kind of checking to see what the prices are going to be, and once they feel the price comes down, they'll likely circle back. So when you hear stories that the Kings are out, the Rangers are out, the Jackets are out, I wouldn't fully put a lot into it. They might be out for the time being. It doesn't just means that based on what insiders are saying, that the current asking price wasn't appetizing for them to proceed further. But doesn't mean they won't jump back in and try to, get that price down at a later date, which I fully suspect them to do. So obviously things are progressing. The value seems to be going down, which means that we're getting closer to an Eichel trade. As I mentioned before, Rasmus Ristolainen is also rumored to possibly be linked to either Eichel or Reinhart. It's quite possible 2 out of those 3 guys could end up going in the same package, but we'll have to wait to be seen. We saw the Kings make one trade earlier today with Victor Arvidsson. That to me does not mean they're out on Eichel, because they are looking for 2 top 6 forwards. That's a well-known fact from several NHL insiders. So we'll have to stay tuned, but I think we're getting closer with the price coming down. Now, on to Vladimir Tarasenko and the Blues. Now, I've seen some reports out there saying that Tarasenko has given a list of teams to Doug Armstrong in St. Louis, and that list includes teams like the Boston Bruins, the Carolina Hurricanes, the New York Islanders. I believe the LA Kings were on that list, if I'm not mistaken, the Calgary Flames. And I'm not completely buying that as an accurate list. Now, I will say this, based on what I've seen from reputable sources that I follow, I do think it's fair to say that Tarasenko's name is certainly out there. I am believing the fact that the Blues want to trade him, and I do believe the fact that Tarasenko is working with them to some degree and may have, I stress may have, given them some teams, but I'm not really buying that the teams on this list are the teams he would provide. Now, not saying that they're all teams he wouldn't go to, but there's at least 3 or 4 of the teams that to me just does not make any sense, not only from their perspective but from his as well, and just doesn't seem to be like a good fit. Now, whoever makes this acquisition is going to obviously be accepting some risk, and they're clearly going to be a team that probably isn't going to want to pay too much, considering they're taking on a hefty contract, unless St. Louis retains, which is possible. But still, it's a lot of money on a player who's had a lot of injuries. So to me, you're not going to get a huge price tag. The thing the Blues will get out of it will be the cap relief, that they can use that money for other things, like maybe keeping Jaden Schwartz, which will be a challenge if they don't do this. So like one team that was mentioned was LA. That one to me is about the only one that kind of makes sense. I can see Tarasenko being a fit there. We know they want 2 top 6 forwards. It's not a given they're going in for Eichel. If they choose not to do that, they get Arvidsson, and they could get Tarasenko, a couple of guys who like to shoot the puck. And to me, they get a heck of a deal on Arvidsson. I think that was a steal. I think he was a lot more responsible for driving his fair share and more of the offense in Nashville. And to me, a lot of the players around him was more of the issue, and I think if he can get back to playing like he did a few years ago, which I think is more likely on a different team, then they're going to really say that they get themselves a great deal. And really, at the end of the day, you give up mid-round picks. Like, it's not even a first-round pick. It's not even a top prospect. Like, they bought low, and they're going to possibly get great reward out of it. And they could do the same possibly on a Tarasenko, who has a ton of potential to bounce back if he can stay healthy. How is that shoulder doing? There's a lot of questions I don't know the answer to, but we know that Tarasenko has a lot of pedigree from the past. But have those injuries taken a toll? Is he the same player? Can he get to that? I read at this point, I can't say with any kind of certainty he would, because we haven't seen it. But if they have enough, confidence they can do that, or they can play him in the right spots, and maybe they'll pull the trigger. I don't know. But Tarasenko's definitely out there. I'm just not buying the list of teams that seems to be floating around saying that he would go there. Now, we have a little bit more information today on the situation with Duncan Keith and the Blackhawks that we first got word on from Elliot Friedman yesterday. Of course, the Sportsnet Insider broke the news around this time yesterday, saying that Duncan Keith and the Hawks were exploring a trade that could see him go to either the Pacific Northwest or Western Canada. I've seen a lot of Western Canada media, specifically the Vancouver Canucks reporters, indicating that they've checked with their sources and kind of done their digging and due diligence, and they don't have any reason to think right now that the Canucks are the team that might be involved. Now, Vancouver would make the most sense from a family perspective. He's from BC, and his ex-wife and son live in BC, and it's believed that he wants to be able to be around his son more, so playing closer to home would be preferable for him. So keep in mind that a lot of people are saying that, well, Duncan Keith has to approve any deal. Yes, he does. He has a full no-move clause, which to me, if this is out there publicly the way it is, that if the insiders are accurate, and we have reason to believe they are, he's likely has asked for this. So to me, Duncan Keith likely will get traded if they can find the fit. Now, of course, the Seattle Kraken also make a lot of sense from a couple perspectives here. For starters, it's really close to Vancouver. Seattle, Vancouver, very close together. So from a family perspective, it fits. They don't have cap problems because they don't have a roster yet. And maybe Chicago could also work something out if Duncan Keith were to waive his no-move clause for the expansion draft and make himself available. They could maybe even do a claim so that they don't even have to give up anything. They could probably work out some kind of side deal so that he goes there. That method, is a different way here instead of doing a full-fledged trade. Because at this point, the Kraken can't really offer much of anything to the Blackhawks. They don't have any assets outside of their draft currency for the upcoming draft. At this point, it wouldn't make sense for the Kraken to be moving draft picks. And what else do they have? Nothing, right? So obviously, this could be a scenario where they work something out that he goes there through the expansion draft or something. Maybe Chicago gives him a little bit of an incentive. But here's the thing that a lot of people may not realize on this Duncan Keith contract. Obviously, it was a long-term deal, and it's very, very back-diving. The problem for a lot of teams is the cap hit. His cap hit's $5.5 million, but the actual cash being paid out is significantly less than that. He has 2 years left in that deal, and for the upcoming year, he's only paid $2.1 million, and then next year he only makes $1.5. So that's far, far less than the actual hit. So even if Chicago were to retain some salary to reduce the cap hit, for example, between the lower cap hit and the much lower cash payout, that would be more enticing. Now, if he goes to Western Canada, to me, the team that makes the most sense would be Edmonton. I wouldn't completely rule out Vancouver, but based on the Vancouver sources that we follow, they're saying that they don't believe there's a move there. So if they're right, then Edmonton would make the most logical sense outside of Seattle. To me, Winnipeg's not far west enough, so I think we can take the Jets out, even though they have probably the most dire need on the blue line. The Flames, I don't know if they can really say that they have a good fit there. Maybe, because there's some question marks. If they lost Giordano in expansion, then perhaps they could bring in a guy like Keith. But at this point in his career, Duncan Keith, to me, wherever he goes, he's going to have to be able to be like a third pair guy. He has to play a smaller role. I think he's really has a lot of miles on that body. All those Stanley Cup runs probably took a lot out of him. He's, had a great career, but he's 37 now, 2 years to go. And to me, I think he could have value just from an experience, the leadership level. There's a lot he can offer. Those intangibles you always hear about, but it has to be for the right role for the a very small price. So I guess we will see where he ends up going. But to me, Edmonton does make a lot of sense because they have more question marks, I guess you could say. Doesn't mean that they're going to be the ones to land him or that they even want him, but it makes more sense from what they have, available there compared to like a team like Vancouver or Seattle. Vancouver could make sense because we'll kind of segue into the next player we're going to talk about, and that's Nate Schmidt. Nate Schmidt's very much on the market as well. So if the Canucks were to move Schmidt, maybe they would take Keith back in that regard, but at the same time, they do appear to have interest to bring back Alex Edler, and there doesn't really make sense for them to have Edler and Keith both. That, to me, is just too much older veterans there. You're kind of blocking out some of your younger players from having a bigger role, and there's just no need of that. Obviously, to have at least one guy back there with the experience, and at this point, they're probably more loyal to Edler, where he's been there so long. So I don't know if we really have a fit with the Canucks either. And makes it maybe the Kraken's where it goes. I don't know. But Nate Schmidt, very much out there. Now his contract's going to be a lot tougher to move. He's got more term at $5.9 million, but the Canucks are certainly for shopping him for sure. That was a bad fit. As much as everything appeared to be great when he was first acquired, a lot of people said, you know what, Nate Schmidt makes his blue line much better, theoretically, but you know what, those theoreticals did not pan out. He had one of his worst seasons in Vancouver, was not a fit at all, and they're clearly trying to move on from that. But again, it's another situation where you have too much term and money coming off a down season. It's not going to be easy. Now, if teams are willing to make trades for him and say, well, if we're confident in our group that he could bounce back and play like he did in Vegas, then obviously they're more likely to get a deal done. So we'll see what happens in Vancouver, but if it's not Duncan Keith going there, Nate Schmidt could be going out. They could be doing other things on their blue line, and we'll have to see what happens because there's a whole bunch of moving parts there. So that is all your latest news and rumors for today. Let me know your thoughts and everything down below in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.